Dort again from the outside. Had a clean look, and that one swishes through. Giddey keeps it himself and takes it up as he glides with the finger
roll. What is up, Thunder fans, and welcome to the Uncontested Postgame Podcast Edition. I am your host for tonight, Tayler Peterson. You can find me on Twitter at Taylor_P15. And we are proudly a part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and DailyThunder.com. If you don't already, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating. We've got some awesome stickers. Actually, I think I put mine up, unfortunately. I thought I still had them here. Jacob gave me some as well, but he still has a stockpile. So be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you do, DM us with that 5-star rating, and we will be sure to send you an awesome uncontested sticker of your choice. We have a couple different options. Our guy Justin sent an awesome job with those. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. We're really trying to push YouTube and TikTok this season. I'm going to be a little more active on each of those and try to provide you guys with a little more content there. But look, all that aside, really, really exciting night for Thunder fans. The Thunder get their first win. The Thunder beat the Los Angeles Clippers 108-94 as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is I don't know if you call it a game time decision, active player, but essentially, we got the note yesterday that he was out. And then all of a sudden around, I forget when they have to submit these, but it was about midday. We get the notification that SJ is questionable. And then Dignall does his pregame availability with the media. And SGA is active. Unfortunately for, honestly, us as well, because I would love to see, with how well the Thunder played tonight, we'll get into that. Would have loved to see guys like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard play tonight against the Thunder. Both of them were out. Paul George with a non-COVID illness, if all the national podcast and media are going to tweet out those things about the Thunder tanking, with Shai's injury, Giddey's ankle injury. I think it's fair for me to put some quotations on the non-COVID illness for Paul George. And then Kawhi, obviously, still load management. So like I said, Thunder end up winning 108-94. Just to dive into some big takeaways. Also, I already see all of you guys in the chat. Love seeing it. Please, I'm going solo tonight. So please send me some questions. I'll be sure to get to those at the end. Some comments, thoughts on the game, whatever it may be. I'll be sure to read the majority of those off once we get towards the end of the podcast. So I appreciate all of you joining. Just to do some big takeaways really quick, and we'll dive into them in further detail later on in the podcast. Look, the first one is the obvious one. It was the Shai and Trae show. Both looked phenomenal. Shai looked like a superstar. Trae looked like a rising star, is what I have here. Again, we'll get into that in more detail, but they really kind of set the pace for this team, both offensively and maybe more importantly, defensively. And that was something that really impressed me, really stood out to me. And like I said, we'll obviously dive into that more in more detail. Second one, again, I said they set the tone defensively. The rest of the Thunder team followed. Thought the Thunder defense was incredible defensively. That led to a really quick pace that the Thunder played with. So that's my second big takeaway. Lu Dort continues to struggle, unfortunately. We'll get into that as well. He continues to play his good Lu defense, continues to contribute. He needs to be on the floor. I'm not trying to get crazy here and say Lu needs to be benched, but he really has struggled offensively and is forcing a little much still. We'll get into that as well. I mentioned the pace. I thought the Thunder played with great pace. That was another takeaway I had. And then Lu Dort. And Aaron Wiggins. Aaron Wiggins. Much better than Lu Dort. Thought he played fantastic. He got the start tonight in the starting lineup. We'll get into that also. I have that as a note here with some of my the step-by-step game summary. But I thought Aaron Wiggins played really well. I think that was a reason why the offense flowed a little better and the defense looked more crisp. So we'll get into Aaron Wiggins also. So I also have some honorable mentions. We'll save those. That's cheating. the guys are going to laugh at me when they listen back to this. And I have not only 5 takeaways, but essentially 7 in typical Tayler fashion. Now, step-by-step game summary, like I mentioned. It was first quarter. Shai and Trey show started early. Trey had 3 straight buckets in the paint, which was awesome. I continue to be really impressed with Shai taking on more of a lead guard role. A lot of that is due to obviously Josh Giddey being out, Shai being out. He's been thrown to the starting lineup as a primary guard alongside either Shai, like tonight, or Giddey, like Sunday night. And I've been really impressed with his playmaking and poise, even if the scoring hasn't been there until tonight. I've been really impressed with Trey being that other, co-guard, if you want to call it that. Shai had just some absolutely dirty mid-range shots. I mean, he is stopping on a dime, to use an overused term, and is knocking it down every single time. And him and Trey really set the tone there in terms of pace, in terms of scoring, and that's how the Thunder kind of got out on top, combined with really good defense. Now, substitutes, talking about rotations. Baze was the first sub for Trey Mann. I thought that was interesting, but it made a lot more sense when Trey came in at the very beginning of the second quarter and Daigneault kind of tried to stagger those two. It was only the first and second that he did that, but that was something to note. And Beasley played some really solid minutes. I don't have him as a positive, negative, a big takeaway on tonight's podcast, but Baze was better tonight for sure compared to his preseason games and as well as his first 2 regular season games. He came in, especially in that first half, and provided the Thunder with some solid minutes. So the Thunder played with much better and faster pace, like I mentioned. In fact, at one point, I believe it was in the first quarter, the broadcast even panned in on Reggie Jackson and mentioned, Reggie has his hands on his hips. He was huffing and puffing a little bit. Hashtag tears of joy for you longtime Thunder fans. I thought, again, Daigneault's rotations, really crisp tonight. If I had more time, I'd probably add that in as a positive, but he was playing Shai, Lou, Poku, Usman, and Baze at one point, which is an incredibly long lineup. It was so much fun. At one point, later on in the quarter, he ended up substituting Kenrich Williams in there as well, and just, again, another really fun lineup. Thunder led 23-18 after 1. Shai had 10 points. He played all 12 minutes. You love to see it. That hip looked fine. And OKC had turned the Clippers over 5 times already, leading to an 11-2 fast break point advantage. So I just thought that was an interesting stat that stood out to me for the first quarter. Jumping into the second quarter, Trey Mann at point guard, like I mentioned. Thunder bench continued to play really well together. Muscala came in with about 7 minutes left in the quarter. Just continues to provide the Thunder with that veteran presence on both defense and offense, and I thought he played really well against the Clippers bigs. Thunder missed some easy buckets. They had some wide open shots that they just weren't knocking down, primarily from the 3-point line, but also under the basket as well. And that kind of let the Clippers kind of get back into it a little bit before the Thunder eventually, kind of pull away and don't look back much. If the Thunder could hit their open threes, I think I tweeted this out, they'd be up double digits, and I think that was fair. Thunder led the Clippers 49-43 at half. Third quarter, Muscala starts for JRE. 21-0 run by the Thunder. That's what I was alluding to. This was led by the defense. They're forcing bad shots. They're getting deflections and steals. They're boxing out and getting rebounds, even though they're undersized. They find themselves up 20. Just really, really impressive. Again, this is largely led on the offensive side by Shai and Trey, but I thought they both played really good defensively as well. Thunder took care of the ball. They only had 3 turnovers from Nick Gallo of the Thunder broadcast. Only 3 turnovers with 8 minutes left in the third. SGA had a ridiculous. I tweet out that he hit a buzzer beater from Edmond to end the third quarter because it was deep, just about a logo shot, just phenomenal. I mean, he was feeling it, and wildly enough, that buzzer beater, it was his first 3-point attempt. Buzzer beater for the third quarter. That was his first 3-point attempt of the night. He was up 27 points heading into the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter, Dort continues to struggle. Bricks it through with about 8:40 left, and Daigneault lets Shai come in instead of Lou. Very quick rest for Shai, but he comes in and pulls Lou out. Clips cut to it, which kind of goes back to something we talked about on the last podcast. By the way, I encourage you all to go back and listen to it. We had a really good segment. I put it up on our TikTok, but we talked about Lou's struggles, and I think this just kind of epitomizes it with Shai coming in for Lou there. Now, granted, Lou obviously gets back in, plays solid defense at the end of the quarter or end of the game, but it's worth mentioning. Clips cut the game to about 11, I think, before Shai drilled a catch and shoot 3, which was awesome. That got him to 30 points. Trey Man continued to Trey Man. It was just so much fun. There was an incredible series here at the end of the fourth, or towards the end of the fourth. Wiggins, he gets blocked. He somehow saves the ball from going out of bounds at the baseline with some like ridiculous like bounce pass to Muscala cutting in, and just a gorgeous pass to Muskie. Muskie passes it back to Wiggins instead of going up and trying to draw a foul. Wiggins gets the layup buckets. It was pretty phenomenal. And then my last point here, Shai was having fun. Go to our Twitter account. I had 2 videos, very low quality, just, ripped off the good old TV screen using the good old iPhone camera here. But Trey Man put Kennard on skates with about 3:30-ish left and just had a ridiculous finish. Not quite at the rim. You would consider it a mid-range floater. Shai comes over, all smiles, dapping up Trey. Him and Trey are having a blast. Like I said, Shai and Trey. And then Shai drives to the basket, found a cutting Wiggins for a dunk during one of the last positions of the game. He's smiling ear to ear in the broadcast. So it's just fun stuff to see. Shai's having fun. I'm having fun. Everybody's having fun. So there's kind of our game-by-game breakdown there. I know there was a lot to get into there, which is why I went a little longer than typical on the game breakdown. But this is where we get into the fun stuff, the meat and potatoes, for lack of a better term. And you all know me, and I promise I'll switch it up eventually. But since I'm going solo tonight, it's a little late. I'm going to the old reliable, the old positives and negatives. And as you all, our long-term listeners know, I love to start on the negatives and on the positives. And tonight there were a ton of positives. So I mentioned my 5 big takeaways. I'm going to break those down into positives and negatives. Not a lot of negatives here. Really, the only one I think I really have is Lou Dort continues to struggle offensively. Now, granted, I want to mention Douglas, is it Houston? Here in the chat, plus 25 for Dort. So he was doing good on D. Great point. And that's something that Daydalt mentioned as well. He kind of got a little defensive, I think, again, in his immediate availability after the game. I mentioned that and said that Dort continues to contribute. And he absolutely does. So I want to be clear, we talk about guys like Baisley, like Poku, who really are in a very critical part of their career. I think that this season where they're looking for that next contract, they need to perform well this season or to get that. Then we talk about guys like Lou Dort, who are struggling early in the season, but obviously have a very well-defined role on this team. I just think, specifically the last 2 games prior to tonight, that role needed to be more defined. I did not hate, and we'll just go ahead and get into Lou Dort, I guess. So that's really my one negative. I did not hate the shot attempts that he had tonight. I did not hate, it was a little more honed in, like I mentioned on Sunday night's podcast. However, it still was not good. 1 of 11 from the floor, 0 of 6 from 3. No, he was 2 of 2 from the free throw line. That's great. Only 2 fouls, also great. And again, like I mentioned, like our listener here mentioned, a plus minus. He was a plus 25 in the plus minus. He played really good defense. He contributes when he's in and really helps some of the. I mentioned the defensive and offensive flows. I think Lou really contributes to those when he's in the game, but not offensively when he's, we talk a lot about Baisley struggling offensively when he's indecisive. He's a little slow at the ball, sometimes out of control. Poku, we talk a lot about him being out of control. Lou, he's more in control when he's driving to the rim, but just continues to really struggle finishing around the rim. And then obviously having those open 3-point shots like tonight, not being able to hit those, that really, really sucks. So Lou Dort was a negative, although, like you all mentioned, he still contributes to this team even when he isn't performing offensively, and that's really important, something to mention. That's just one thing that stood out to me. Another negative, just quickly, the Thunder's 3-point shooting, right? 4 of 30 from the floor, 13.3%. Somehow they still win a game, even though Paul George and Kawhi weren't playing. I understand that. A lot of veterans, though, a lot of solid veteran players on this Clippers team. The Thunder shoot only, and they only shot, the Clippers only shot 32.3% from three, 10 of 31. But the Thunder shoot only 13% from three and are still able to beat the Clippers, right? So it's not just Lou struggling from outside. I want to make that clear as well. So that Lou offensively, I think specifically, and then the Thunder's 3-point shooting were kind of my two big negatives, but the rest just positives. A lot of fun things to talk about here. Like I said, let's just go ahead and jump into the big stuff here. The Shai and Trey show both look phenomenal. Shai had 33 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 11-22, 50% from the field, 2-2 from 3, only 2 3-point shot attempts, and he nails both of them. Maybe the biggest thing for me, this is something for longtime listeners. We talked a lot about this about this time last year, heading into the season. We wanted to see Shai be more aggressive getting to the free throw line, drawing those fouls, and then obviously knocking down those free throw attempts. Well, tonight, 9-9 from the free throw line, which is huge. Tied Trey Mann for the most minutes on the team with 36. He had 3 steals, 3 blocks, only 2 turnovers. I mean, just a phenomenal game. A superstar game from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think it's worth saying. He continued to create for teammates. And maybe the most important thing, I'm just reading off stats here, but I thought he played phenomenal defensively as well. A lot of deflections. I didn't pull up NBA stats, so I'm sorry I don't have those in front of me, but he got a lot of deflections. Like I mentioned, those steals. He was engaged defensively. He looks improved, and both physically and laterally, being able to stay in front of defenders. And him and Trey, like I mentioned, really kind of set the tone defensively for the Thunder tonight from the very beginning. That is so important. I don't think it's a coincidence, and we'll get into this, some of these crazy stats that Thunder had in transition, as well as defensively, when Shai is setting the tone on that end of the floor. I mean, just like I said, a superstar night from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Not to be undermined is Trey Mann, who had quite the night himself. 25 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 10-24 from the floor. He actually led the Thunder in field goal attempts. Obviously, I don't want to see that every night, because I know on Sunday night's podcast I mentioned when you see Trey Mann take more of those Lou Dort shot attempts. But I did really like the balance tonight. While obviously typically you want to see Shai get more shot attempts than Trey Mann, but not by too much. I mean, they weren't out of the offense. I thought Trey was aggressive, played within he found the balance. He played within the flow of the offense, but was still aggressive. He knew he had the green light, but didn't take necessarily advantage of that. That was a really good balance. He was only 2 of 8 from 3. That's something I obviously want to see improve from Trey. Like I mentioned, especially with Josh being out tonight, like this was great to see Shai. I keep saying that. It was great to see Trey perform this way. But Trey's such a special talent. Shai's obviously a special talent. We know Josh Giddey's a special talent. So when Josh Giddey's back in the mix, like how do you play Shai, Trey, and Josh together if they're your best 3 players on the team, right? Like when we're thinking 1-2 seasons from now, the Thunder are really competing in play-ins or playoffs, whatever it may be. Kind of like in a different way, the James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant situation early on, right? Like how do these guys coexist? Tonight, Shai and Trey coexisted great. Shai and Trey not so much on Sunday, but I mean they still weren't awful. But like how does this balance out when Josh Giddey's back in the mix? Something I'm really keeping an eye on here. Regardless, all let's say 3 from the free throw line. Like I said, he tied Shai for the most minutes on the team. I'm trying to think here, 2 steals, only 1 turnover. Like I said, really great game from Trey Mann. Some really fun highlights. Like I said, some kind of janky highlights that I just took off the TV screen. Be sure to go check those out on the Uncontested account. But I thought Trey played really well defensively also. And that's something that Mark Daydon't mentioned in his postgame. I'm going to have to scroll through screenshots here, unfortunately. But see if I can find it. Oh, so it says mentioning his defense. Trey Mann actually commented on it himself. He said, probably I just know how to do it. But he mentioned that Mark Daydon't told him he had to take defending seriously when he first arrived in OKC. And that's something we talked a lot about, right? Trey Mann going to the blue last season and then coming back up and really focusing on the defensive end. And then Daygnault said he thought Trey Mann's defense was really good tonight. Not a lot to elaborate on there, but like I said, Trey, Shai, both were awesome. I'll go through the rest of these pretty quickly. Thought the Thunder defense was honestly incredible. It really led to the increased pace that I mentioned earlier. The Thunder had 39 defensive rebounds to the Clippers 40, 12 steals to the Clippers 5, created 18 turnovers, which led to 23 points off turnovers and 17 fast break points. 26 second chance points, which I guess technically isn't a defensive stat. I think I just threw that in there from the graphic I was looking at. They went on 21-0 run in the third quarter, which again I was largely led by the defense. Guys like Wiggins, Shai, Trey, JRE, Mike Muscala all played really solid defense in that run during that stretch. And that's what led to that 21-0 run when the Thunder were getting steals, deflections, causing really difficult shots, getting defensive rebounds, pushing the ball in transition. Like that's what this Thunder team is all about this season. We know they aren't a good 3-point shooting team. Like I mentioned earlier, they shot horrible from 3. They were able to win this game because they were pushing the ball in transition. And that all starts with, really good defense. I thought, like I said, Shai led the charge. Not a coincidence that the team followed. And then Wiggins starting here helps as well. We will get into Aaron Wiggins. I think I mentioned the pace as a positive. I don't really have like a ton of stats to go with that, but it's definitely worth mentioning. And then finally, my last positive here, Aaron Wiggins. Thought Aaron Wiggins was fantastic here in the starting lineup. Wiggins was, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of 14 from the floor, which isn't great, but just the things that Wiggins does. We talk about high basketball IQ. He's cutting, off-ball movement, playing solid defense. The offense just flowed so much better with Wiggins in at that starting 4. And that's just something that really stood out to me from the very beginning that I found interesting. So I want to throw Aaron Wiggins in there as a positive. All right, so going to scroll through. Have a crying baby here, so I'm going to try and scroll through. Sorry for the abrupt ending there. But we're going to go through some of these comments, answer some of your questions, and we'll go ahead and get out of here. David Skelton, what happened to our hot shooting from Summer League? Even Oos was running it. Now I don't expect any 3 to go in. Yeah, you're exactly right, David. It is very interesting. I think some of that's going to be getting everybody healthy back on the court, especially Josh Giddey, right? Other creators. But man, it seems like those guys really need to get in a little bit more of a rhythm. I hope to see that improve as the season goes along, especially with Chip England. I know he's working with a lot of these guys. I mentioned him working with Giddey, Jerry, etc. Eamon says SGA, aka him. Let's see. Eamon also mentioned usual Clippers sitting their star players and interfering with our tank. Let's see. Here's a good question from Eamon. Good to see Wiggins getting minutes. You still think he cracks the rotation once J-Dub gets back? Yes, Eamon. I that's the thing with Wiggins. I didn't get to go into detail with him and my positive, but when he's playing like this, I don't see how you keep him out of the lineup. It's just interesting, right? Like, this is where the Poku Bazley thing gets interesting. If they continue to kind of struggle, Dagon doesn't trust them as much. Do we see more Wiggins and J-Dub when J-Dub gets healthy instead of Poku and Bazley? So that's kind of something to keep an eye on. Let's see what else here. Hustle on D. He said, I think one reason that we won is the Clippers have talented dudes, but they don't seem to play with real heart, like a team that plays for each other. It's kind of something I mentioned there as well. Hustle on D. Just this team playing cohesively, pushing the ball in transition, playing to their strengths. That's why they didn't win those first 3 games, in my opinion, and did win tonight. Trey managed to start over Dort whenever we are healthy. That's a fun one. And Kamel mentioned a really good point here. Did you notice Bazley's minutes going down? Yes, I did. Let's see. Pulling it up. Bazley had, if I can find it, sorry. So we've mentioned this. He had 19 points off the bench, which actually, to be fair, tonight was the second leading minutes getter off the bench behind Kendrick Williams, who had 25. But yes, his minutes continue to go down. He got more tonight, and I thought he played better tonight. Sorry, excuse me. Kamel also mentions, this is kind of funny. It was really good to see Moses Brown bullied by our guys. Yes, he got bullied. He did get some time there. Very interesting. Shout out to No Dunks guys who think that Moses Brown should be a starting center in the league. Shai owns LA. Okay, here's a couple good questions here before we get out of here. Has anyone noticed the difference in some of the loose shots? Some of them are his typical sky-high threes, while others have a much more normal arc to them. Like, I think that's a great point. I think that's where you'll see him working with England kind of, result in him shooting better. We're going to see less arc and more of those, like you said, more of I don't want to say it's not a line drive, like the perfect medium. Right. And I hope to see that more as the season goes along because he really is struggling. But we've seen what Lou can do. In fact, there was actually a quote here by Shai on Lou. He said, I've seen Lou go from a non-shooter to a really good shooter. There are ups and downs in life, and Lou knows that. And he said that Lou will continue to work on it. So, I think Shai brings up a good point. Shai's seen that before with Lou, and now Lou has Chip England. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Meek Leak. Shout out Meek Leak. Do we ever use Josh on second unit? The Shai Trey combo looked really good. It did. Now, I don't know if we'll see that in the second unit Meek Leak, but I think we will see now more Trey and Shai lineups when they're resting Giddey, staggering Giddey and Shai. It just adds more depth and power to this team. And I'm really excited to kind of see that moving forward. And then River mentioned as well, really good point by River Anderson in terms of Lou, could be that shoulder injury. So that's something to mention also. So I kind of apologize for getting out here a little late. I hear a crying baby in the background. I'll go take care of him. Having a solo parent tonight, but I really, really appreciate all of you joining. Let's see if I can get that background music going. Thank you all for really game. The Thunder end up beating the Clippers, get their first win of the season, 108-94. Played really impressive. Like I said, pace, defense, and then Shai and Trey shine. Big takeaways there. Be sure to stay tuned. Thursday night, Thunder play the Clippers again in a home and home. If you want to call it like a baseball mini series, be sure to stay tuned. We will have you covered for that. I believe Justin's on the Postgame podcast, but Jake and I will be there in person. So really excited. Stay tuned. We'll have you all covered on social media. Thank you all for tuning in again. Our interaction to start the season on YouTube, Twitter, downloads, etc., TikTok, all has been awesome. We're really appreciative of that. All of you guys tuning in right now, dropping your comments and questions. I'm sorry I didn't even get to all of them. We just really appreciate all of you guys, and we're excited. Tonight was an exciting game, something to build upon. We hope that you'll be there with us along the entire ride. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you all on Thursday, and as always, Thunder up.